earlier today in the session, we ran into a brick wall where OpenAI went down. So we were unable to continue with looking at some of our beats. We had already gotten to the part where we were taking a look at our chapter beats for chapter one, and we were looking at our summaries. Where we left off, we were looking at beats for chapter one, and some of the things that we had questions on were the area where it was unclear. Any anywhere where it stated that the characters were either contemplating something, thinking about something, or that there was a secret, or say the two ladies were communicating or talking about an event. So we did a little bit of prompting prior, and on beat four, you can see some of the result of the prompting earlier. It went ahead and now has Anna Martinez is introducing herself. She's hinting that she knows more about the magic masquerade than she lets on. Now, one of the things that we did not do was figure out more about that magic masquerade. Now, we do know that from what it says here on beat three, it says that it is an underground event that happens once a year. It is secretive. It's rumored to blend the ordinary and the magical worlds. So at this point, I'm curious what Lauren does. Lauren know that the magic world or realm exists? Or is it something that she's going to find out later on in the book? Now, because I created this from early conception within AI, these are all things that have not been ironed out. These are this story was birthed inside of AI and is slowly being fleshed out within ChatGPT 4. So I'm definitely going to ask if Laura knows about the magical world. I know her mother used to tell her stories, and she thought that they were just fantastical tales from her childhood. But as time goes on, she's going to realize that there's more truth to those tales than fiction. So give me just a minute to type this up. Cece, would you like to add something while I'm typing this up?
I'm curious about a couple of items in here, and maybe they'll be revealed as it starts to flesh it out more. As it stands right now, I'm not comfortable with not knowing. That just could be me. I'm curious about why she's at an old apartment. I'm curious, like you're doing already, the magic masquerade. And I'm also curious about, okay, beat two, their unique plan for the day. I want to know what the AI is thinking when it says their unique plan for the day. What is that? That's what I'm hoping to find out before I set it off, because down the road we'll be doing possibly more expansion on this. So I want to know these things before it goes further. But that just might be me. How about you, Lynn?
Yeah, I would like to know those things too. I came late to the story, so I'm not totally up with it.
I
Hey,
know that. Go ahead, Cece.
I was gonna say I didn't come late to it, and I'm still a little bit shaky on it, and maybe because I haven't seen enough of it. What were you saying, Marigold?
I kept getting stuck on the alley inside of Central Park. Again, I do not live in New York. As an author, one of the things that I can do is I can actually look up Central Park. I can go to, what is it, Google Maps. I can actually have it drill down, take a look at the park, take a look at some of the surrounding structures so that I can have a bird's eye view of the park itself. I can also bring up different types of activities that have happened in New York because, again, New York is not where I live. I've only visited New York a handful of times. But if, as a writer, if I'm going to write to something, then I'm going to research it to definitely understand. And that's one of the things that you really need to do if you are writing about a specific city or state or a concept that has that's built around truth in reality. You want to make sure that you are staying consistent so that it makes that feel plausible. Now, of course, if you're writing about Mars, then the sky is the limit for what you put down.
Very true. Hey, before you hit enter, Angie, Dion, Ellie, do y'all have anything that you want to add to this that we should find out about right now?
No, I don't think I really have anything to add. I think you guys covered it pretty well.
Yeah,
as you said, it's clear here, but and I can confirm that it's if you're writing about a real place, you should either use internet or visit the place we're writing.
Abs-
So definitely. And I do like to research a lot. Now, I have visited Central Park. Again, I do not live in New York, but I can definitely pull up the information on the internet, as you had stated, and I can do my research and my homework. And to your point, that is so important to do as a writer so that you don't put something down that is incorrect. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here and let's see what it says. So, as you can see, rather than spit out the content to me in my summary, this time the AI has decided to answer my questions and it's basically lining them out for me. I like it whenever it does this because it gives me a chance to drill down deeper into the different points that I'm a bit confused about or items that I need more information. So it's stating that at the beginning of the story that Laura she does not know about the magical world. Of course, she heard the different stories that her mother told her, but her mother shielded her because she wanted to keep her safe. Now, that is something that we could drill down into. Now, generally, I would drill into that, find out why. Has her powers been imbued? Does she have some type of protection that keeps her shielded? And it states here that her mother has shielded her to ensure her safety. Now, if her mother is deceased, how has that shield remained in place? So that is something that I need to clarify with the AI.
so interesting. Points 2, 3, and 4. It almost seems to backtrack a little bit on what it had and maybe changing it up a bit.
Let's see. So number 2, okay,
I
so
I think what it means there is a historical apartment, not an old apartment because it said it's not dilapidated.
Yeah. Oh, it says it's been in her family for generations.
I saw that. So I wanna know if it is an historic district or if it's just a typical brownstone. And also, because it's been in her family and she knows nothing about it, is there something that keeps the apartment are there runes or a spell on it that keeps her hidden?
Like Angie said, it could be wards, and maybe it's the
Oh,
apartment that has the protection, not her mother, but we'll see what AI says.
okay, so let's take a look at okay, so it's not dilapidated. And it is mysterious about her lineage. I'm okay there. See, I used a unique plan as a placeholder. Let's flesh it out. Okay, so there is an exhibit. Now, if it's an interactive exhibit, what kind of interactive exhibit is it?
It looks like it's some kind of scavenger hunt or something with a map and clues and stuff. Treasure hunt?
Now, I know that there are games out there that you can follow and you can search the clues. I know that there's a game where you look at the murder clues and you try to find out who the killer is. So maybe it's a game like that. So let's ask, let's see what we can put into it that will really draw this out and provide something succulent for the AI to write about. Let's look at number 4. Tell me about the alley. So Central Park doesn't traditionally have alleyways, so we definitely don't want to use that term, especially if it isn't used in the urban sense. So we're going to refrain from this. The alley in Central Park is a lesser known secluded path. So why don't we call it more of a maybe we could use trail. So it's a trail that not many people know about or take. Now, I do recall my husband and family, my son was living in New York at the time. So he was taking us on a tour as somebody who lived in New York. So we got to see a lot of different things that typically we wouldn't have seen if we had been a typical tourist. So that was one of the things that I was trying to get to. Now, this works for me because this particular path has those archaic stones and some entrances. Are there additional words there? What kind of information is there? So I feel comfortable with where we're at this point, with the exception of the questions that we're asking. I do like the fact that the love interest uses this pathway to transition between his world and the human realm. But I want to know, do typical humans see what's happening? Can a typical human walk through that pathway? And if humans can't, what happens with Laura? Because she has suppressed magic, is she able to see it? So that's a question that I have.
And Angie was mentioning that she almost feels like you could use a AI to prompt the AI to give you one chapter at a time, make the changes, and then feed it back to the AI so it can take that into account and build the next section, the next chapter, which I've tried
Well,
that. You tried that ever, Mira?
I actually have tried that to build it that way. One of the things that I found is that if I build my summary right now, and then I take the summary from this chapter that I build, and then I build out my story beats, and then I write that prose, I tend to find out that as I'm going through and hit the next chapter, or maybe 5 chapters from now, I might find that a thread is introduced that I might really like, but the thread needs to be interwoven into the prior chapters, which would cause me to have to do some rewrite. And I often find that I used to do that a lot whenever I was writing manually. Even though I am an individual who plots and plans, my plots and plans, even prior to AI, were really extensive because, again, I plot everything out. And before I ever start writing prose, I would plot all of my story beats out. So doing the beats and the summaries this way is not a new concept to me. But I did find that I needed to do it all the way through the book for my summary before I started on my chapter beats. And I did that because sometimes something that might happen later in the book will impact and change some of my summaries in the beginning. So I don't want to do double work with my prose that I would have written. So that's why I kind of stick to the summary. But that doesn't mean that process will not work for someone else. Me, I have a hard time with when I start something and I start that process of writing out my chapter outline. I am such a creature of habit, and I have to see it from beginning to end on that summary for that chapter outline before I can move to the next step. So that's the process that works for me. I don't know. What do you do, Cece?
So I've used that method. So the problem that I encountered is that if I created it in chat, then I went to pseudo write story engine and generated, then I had to bring it back over. So I didn't like doing that as much. But when I'm actually creating some of the prose in chat, I don't mind it as much. But still, you know how the AI tries to sometimes go off on its own and just go off the rails actually and do what it wants to do? That's why I try to fight it and keep it more in line early on if I can. Lynn, have you tried that other method too?
Yes, in fact, I love to do my brainstorming and my setup and even get to my outline stage using chat because I do like the way I can interact with it and watch it as it's generating and say, wait a minute, why would this do this? Or this isn't logical. What about this? And by the time I've done that, I feel like I've got a stronger handle on the story and I'm more comfortable taking it over into, say, Story Engine to actually generate after I get out all the story details worked out.
Now, one of the things that I do that I find really helpful after I finish my summary, and I keep everything in this one chat. Everything that I do in a story, I keep in one chat. Now, once I finish this summary and I start going back to grab my information for my story beats, I will actually go back. You see all this information right here for the protection shield, the character watching over Laura. When I go to write my story beats for chapter 1 and say I want either 12, 14, or 16 beats, when I go to tell the AI to write those, if I have pertinent information like what's listed here that I want ingrained into that chapter, what I will do is I will go and grab the whole section that talks about that chapter 1 summary. I will grab that information and then I will feed ChatGPT 4 my prompt for writing out my story beats. And I will also feed it this information along with my summary. And then I'll tell it to write out my chapter beats. And I'll ask it to go ahead and add in some drivers, some focus points, any guardrail that needs to be adhered to. And I do that because I want to make sure everything is ingrained and wrapped into my beats so that I don't have to have anything to the left of my cards if I'm in Write Story Engine, or if I decide that I want to take my story beats, say, into Claude. I can just copy everything that I have here and I can do that same process in Claude. And I can give Claude chapter 1 and tell Claude, hey, I want you to write my beats in strides of 2 and proceed with the first 2 following the directions I just gave you. And I can do that in Claude. And when it writes the first 2, then I would tell it to proceed to the next 2 beats and then tell it to go to the next 2 beats. And I can do that consistently with Claude. And I can write it that way inside of ChatGPT 4. Now, again, I do like to use the 3 different LLMs, and I'm also beginning to use Rexy a little bit. I just came into Rexy, so I am relying on Lynn Jordan, who is assisting me with some of the ins and outs of Rexy because she's been playing in there longer than I have. And that
I've
is,
been playing in there about 30 minutes longer than you have.
I think you've watched a lot of classes because I think I've watched 2. So now looking at this content, I feel comfortable with the information that it is showing. And I do like the pathway reaction and what it is doing. Now, I like the fact that there's a hint of magic in their blood. So maybe it's some form of blood magic. And I think it's interesting. And she feels that pull. Now, I'm now going to tell it to rewrite that chapter 1 summary following the original format and adding in all the new details. So at this point, what would you do differently, Cece? Or would this be the process you would follow as well?
I'd follow this process exactly like you're doing. But myself, as soon as it's done, I would ask it if there were any inconsistencies or holes or information that I need put in there because I will be giving it to an AI to write for me. So I tell it that so it's aware that we need to know what we don't know so that the AI can use it because I'm going to be possibly switching it over to Story Engine to write.
So do you find that it is helpful to go through that step of evaluation and being able to have that conversation with the AI and asking it if there's anything that would hang up an AI writing prose for you?
Helpful? That's an understatement. For me, it's essential. I need that. I need to know because I may have missed something. So we have an AI that's going to be giving information to an AI through me. I don't always know how these things think. And so I like to take this creature, for lack of a better word, this LLM, I need it to give me the way it thinks and how it it's equal in another program would think. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Lynn, how about you? Is this kind of a similar process or does your process differ? Because I know you're a pantser. I'm an extreme plotter. Cece does both pantsing and she does a lot of plotting. A lot of her plotting she can keep up in her head also. And so for your process as a pantser, what do you do that might differ?
What I really like to do is I like to get it to this stage, and then I like to run and see what ideas it has. And then I can have a back and forth conversation about those ideas. Now, sometimes it's true. I do what Stacey does is I come back over here and say, how do I tell an AI engine to do this? Or what do you understand about maybe a certain writing technique or a characterization technique? And it's really helpful to ask the AI what it knows. It will do that, but I love to see where it takes the story to begin with.
So, looking at the evaluation, an evaluation is a really good way for somebody to look at their beats. And I And to do that, whenever I'm finished with my summary beats, I will also ask the AI to please evaluate them. And I'm evaluating them because my eyes are on it so much. And I know that I have details in my head, but I may not have put those details down on the computer screen. And that's important because, and that's one of the things that when I used to write everything out manually or type it without AI assistance, I would have information up on my head, and it's that balance of what you have up in your head and what you're putting down on paper, or in this case, the screen. I love having the AI because that resource allows me to keep going back and forth with an idea. And you just saw how quick it was for the AI to reorganize content. The AI even went in and has changed the time of day to fit the structure of my chapter better. Originally, chapter one started at like 10 a.m. in the morning. Now, because of the type of items that are occurring, it is now taking place at on Friday at 4:45. I think originally it was Monday at 10 a.m. I like this being Friday at 4:45. It is having them have that little scavenger hunt. So to me, that is a better story opener because it is really active and it gives them a reason for being in the park.
Hey, and Dion had a good catch. She said that B3 still has the alley in it. So we
So
need to thank him.
I'm not to beat three yet, but thank you for pointing that out. And these are the things that you really have to dig down into. So now the hook is the opening hook. She's flipping through an old family photo. We can definitely see that she is in her historic brownstone. We know a locate. We can orient the reader. We've given the AI just enough to be able to run and write. There is a reoccurring image of her mother standing near an obscure alley. So the alley starts right here inside of beat one. So I'm going to ask the AI to please ensure that it's not using alley because that is not, we're not using an alley in Central Park.
What
Please
it
ensure
did it
that,
call it like a pathway or something? Is that
yes, it was using a pathway or trail.
yeah, okay.
Let's see, alley.
Hey, Angie says, how about a signpost on a trail so it's easier for her to locate it?
Oh, that's a good idea. Also, you can add a sign. Okay, so let's see. We also it's evaluated the hook and it feels that, there's nothing in there that is tripping it up. We know that Cleo arrives excited, talking about the interactive mystery art game that's happening. So we know that they're going to that later on that evening. They're bantering, they're, let's see, revealing that they've signed up for the game. It's giving the AI enough information that we know that they're going to emerge themselves in a make believe crime solving world. So it is giving the AI enough information to draw from and build. Now, the evaluation, it lets us know that there's a relationship between friends. We know what kind of game it is. Three, let's see, here's the tour. We know that at some point they're going to have to meet people. So let's see what it does if it changes information when it rewrites our first chapter summary. Now, Anna comes into play. Remember, we want to make sure that the AI does not say anything about Anna actually thinking something, feeling something. Everything should be straight up from Laura's perspective because we are in Laura's head. So if Laura can't see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, taste it, or to feel it emotionally or physically, it's not happening. So everything has to be from Laura's perspective. So that's one of the things that I notice that the AI will mess up on. And I don't care which AI I am in, I tend to find that any of them can begin to hop heads. So be sure that you're paying attention to that, whether you are in first person when you start writing prose or when you are drilling through your summaries or chapter outlines or beats, make sure that you're paying attention to whose perspective that chapter summary or those chapter beats are from. Otherwise, you're going to have beats that start hopping heads, and then it's going to force you to have to make all those changes. So, what are some of the things that you do, Lynn or Cece, when it comes to ensuring that your early primary beats or your story beats are staying consistent with one perspective?
Here's where I would argue with it, which I do quite often, and say, since we're in Laura's perspective, how would we know that Anna studies the alleyway and doesn't notice the allure? We can't know what she's feeling. Make sure that you keep this within Laura's point of view. And usually they'll come back and apologize to me and rewrite it.
Yep, same here. Always with the apologies, hollow apologies, no less.
It's a computer, it's not sorry.
Yeah, and I also, for me, I also make it put the POV character at the top. Did it do it on this one? I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, it started out with her flipping through
Yeah.
an album.
It has Laura, so chapter
Yeah.
1, Laura's POV. Now, I think it changed Laura's name, so that is something that I'll have to look at. But I
Now,
find
you probably wouldn't want to use Thompson.
Oh, no, I would definitely change that. I might even change Laura's name. I might leave it the way it is, but then once I write it, I will go ahead and make changes to it. And whenever I go into the editing process, I can change the name all at once, or I can change the name inside of the summary, chapter outlines, or I can change it right before I begin to do my prose. So again, I still have time to make that decision. Now, one of the things that I did do, because we don't know why Anna is there, and it has stated that it's unknown why she is there. What if she's walking a dog? And what if that dog is her familiar, but yet Laura won't know anything about that world? So that would be another layer that we could add on because maybe that dog becomes a hell dog later. So I don't know. So I'm going to state that it is a hell dog that protects her, but in the human world, that it's a tiny, cute, fluffy breed. So that way it is keeping itself concealed. Now, if we go on to number 5, let's take a look at we know, there you go. The sun is casting a surreal glow. Ooh. And then we see that Anna leaves, feeling suddenly out of place. Now we need to see Anna's motion. So we need to see what it looks like when we have it revise that summary. And as you can see how much we have gone back and forth on this. So this is not a quick process. I cannot sit down and flesh out a body of work just in 10 minutes, an hour. It takes time for me to go through every single chapter summary. And this is only 6 beats. Can you imagine whenever you are working with your fleshed out story beats when you have, say, 12, 14, or 16 beats? You're doing the same general process. So by the time you are done, you should have some really tight beats. So right here on number 5, it talks about how the love interest steps out, transitioning from his world to hers. Anna actually leaves during that time. Now, we need the AI to show her being uncomfortable when the prose are written. Right now, we just need a description. Laura, on the other hand, she feels a strange connection. So in the evaluation, it talks about how the love interest's introduction is a critical plot point. But however, with Anna's sudden exit right after her introduction can feel abrupt and may confuse readers. So her departure might benefit from more context or foreshadow. So let's ask the AI how we can foreshadow that. Anybody have thoughts on that?
I have a thought on something else. I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry. I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in here, and I hate to do that.
No, throw the wrench.
He's
That is what we're here for.
he's stepping out, going from his world to Laura's.
Mhm.
How are we supposed to know that? We're not in his head.
Because maybe she sees that. So we need to figure out how he appears. And that is something that we need to know. If normal humans cannot see people passing, then how do we know? And yes, that is actually another one of those items where one, we were in Anna's head first. Now we are inside of the love interests. And we can't know that, like Cece said. How do we deal with that?
And I don't remember the way the characters all were listed out. Does she already know him?
No, she does not know him. He is a guardian spirit. He is there guarding the realm between the two areas. And we can, in chapter 2, we can have him, maybe to his mentor, that he felt a pull or a draw that drew him from his realm into the human world. And maybe that draw was her coming to Central Park. So this is where the items that happen in chapter 1, even though it is showing her world, that's where we can set up some of those breadcrumbs that can impact future chapters. And so, to Cece's point, now that we've cleared up some of the other items, now that we're on 5, we have to figure out how it is that he steps in between without all the other characters noticing, at least from Laura's perspective. And how does she see him? Does half of his body show up? Does she think she's on drugs? Does she think somebody spiked her water? Or does she think she's tired? We need that answered because we need to know how it is that he steps in and that it's not disruptive to other people. But at the same time, we need to see it all from Laura's perspective.
Is she the only one that can see him?
And that's good. That's interesting.
I don't think she is, and here's why, because it says that Anna leaves because she feels out of place, and by the way, we shouldn't know how Anna feels because this is
Yeah.
not
That's right.
right?
She could be uncomfortable
Yeah, we
and,
have to
you know,
tell
be
it.
wanting to leave
Yeah,
without seeing anything in particular.
we have to tell it to show that and make sure it doesn't try to go to her POV. Hey, plus Angie wants to know, how does the travel between worlds work? Do we even know that?
So what it was saying is that the guardians are there protecting it, and it's only supposed to be visible to those with magic, and that humans cannot see it, and that they're not supposed to be able to walk through it. But there is a specific flower that blooms once during like a century or something. And that blooming flower that the AI had come up with, when that flower blooms, it opens up a window between the two different realms. And there is a shadow world between them. And that shadow world is not visible except for when that flower blooms. So that's going to become a central issue. But yeah, supposedly humans cannot see it except for when that bloom is there. So I know that with Laura having magic in her blood and her magic is suppressed and she keeps feeling the warmth of the necklace, there's something at play there. So that's how far we've come with what we understand of that pathway.
So it says Elon, or however you pronounce his name, steps out. That makes me think it's a portal by the flower. That's where it leads me.
He's able to go back and forth, and so is his mentor. So if they can go back and forth and they're manning that because they're assigned that specific area, a portal wouldn't be bad. But why is there a portal there in the first place? Is it a portal? Is it a rip in between the worlds? What kind of pathway is it? And I do like the idea of a portal and that they are guarding it. But what I don't understand about it, and we might want to ask the AI, is why is it there? Why is there a need for it to be there between the two worlds?
We could ask it also if there's any ley lines that would cross that area because it could be related to a ley line. I just want to throw in one note of where I would fix this beat, all of these beats, is that I would tell the AI to remove Elon's name and to put stranger, because when I hand this over to Story Engine to write, it's gonna write his name, and we don't know his name yet. So that's where I would you have to fine tune, and that's one of the things that I would fine tune. I would tell it, replace Elon with handsome stranger, just until we, the reader, knows his name. Otherwise, it screws up everything, and then I gotta do more edits.
And that's very true. You do all your editing here so that you make your prose much smoother.
I think the AI will know what she's talking about, Angie. It's pretty good with the improper things.
Hey, it just misled you. Grammarly just misled you. Ley line is L-E,
What?
L-E-Y.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Angie noticed it too.
Is he only seen by the protagonist? What about Anna?
Seems like Anna sees him because it says right after her introduction. So she must see him. Otherwise, she wouldn't be introduced to him. But that would be interesting because how is Laura, who doesn't know Ellen, introducing him? I guess it could work out. But oh, so Ellie says, do you think everything should be 100% planned out in advance to get a nice story? And I'm sure we all have answers to that. Mira Gold, won't you take the first answer?
Everybody knows my thought on that 100% because I don't know where the story is going until I ask it all these questions. But that doesn't mean that I don't get surprises because that's how I get great big space wells in space during a war. And there are all kinds of armadas in space, but there's a great big giant space. I kept that, but I'm telling you, you still get surprises no matter how much you plot.
What about you, Lynn?
Oh, good grief, no. If I have the whole story right here, I guarantee you I will never write it. There's no reason to write it because I know it.
It's already played out, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no reason to continue.
Yeah, I'm that way too. I like a little bit of, I like to know that I don't have any big plot holes, but I also like to know why the AI is telling me something. But I may decide to override it based on my own personal preferences. But I'm a writer. That's what I am. I'm a writer. So I don't have a problem with saying, hey, you know what? I'll put something in there later on when I'm doing the edit. So to me, I personally don't think everything has to be planned out. Lynn clearly doesn't, and Marigold does. So there's like no right answer. It's a personal preference kind of thing, and it just depends on how you work. What about you, Ellie? Would you like it all planned out? So Ellie says you may know how the story ends, but you may let freedom for yourself.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, it's what I said. It's what I said before. I have like 6 novels, and some, of course, it was before the era of questions, and I have some of them were not 100%. At least I know where I'm going, and sometimes even the last one, it's a novel that will be published in January. At the very end, I just changed the end of it. And this is the thing that was like throwing my publisher down. Can we say that? I'm French speaking normally, but they were blown away. That's what I meant because I changed everything at the very end of the story. And that created a surprise. So yeah, I should, in my mind, I have everything planified, not everything, but like, let's say 70%. And I give myself some freedom to, after that, to navigate between this and that. And that's why also, on another hand, once I finish, it's not me that discover basically the problem, but it's my editor and my publisher. They say, oh, how comes that this is happening? Oh, so I just remind myself that I did a mistake and or mistake. Yeah. So it's not a nice answer, let's say, but yeah, I'm between both of them. And again, it would be maybe my first time working with AI. Not maybe, but it was surely my first time working with AI, and that's why I'm just like questioning myself. Do you have the 100% to have 100% feeding the AI with 100%, or can we, let's say, give it some freedom?
Yes. Yeah. I agree. And so I've been a writer for many years, but making a living at it for about 8 or 9 years. So the interesting thing is that now and I've always done what you do, which is I know where the story's going to end, but I take a different road getting there because I might add this or add that and I change it up a little bit. So now I'm working with the AI and I find myself in the same position that you might find yourself in, which is how to incorporate my system to work with the AI, it's going to be interesting.
Well, I want to know what happened to Cleo.
Well, Cleo's in there somewhere.
Wait a minute.
I think Cleo's last name changed again.
I think something else happened. Oh, mysterious man. Okay. Now they put Cleo back in there. Oh, wasn't Cleo with her at the apartment at first?
Yeah,
Yes.
and then they came to the park, but as soon as they got to the park, he disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
Whichever it is.
Yeah, she did disappear, didn't she? You can see, though, y'all, how this doing a class with and trying to do a whole book would take so many hours. But this gives you an idea of how to go about the process of doing every chapter. If this is a method you want to use, you might decide to use a different method, a hybrid method of going only so far and then writing the rest, creating the rest yourself and letting the AI direct it. That's going to depend on you.
Okay. So Anna's trying to tell him to go to the new cafe sometime. Let's see. We have Cleo. Cleo
Yeah.
is
Cleo's staying in longer this time.
Cleo is in 2. Cleo is in 3. They are chatting with Anna. We have 4. Anna's demeanor changes. She mentions that they, as in Cleo and Laura, so Cleo is still mentioned here. Number 5, the group, which includes Cleo, which if I were to load this into pseudo write story engine, I would have to take out group and add in the characters' names. Now, I have found that if I keep my character list right here and it is really fleshed out and I name everybody who's on in there, then the AI tends to understand who they is. But if I don't have a character list in my summary or in my chapter beats, if I don't have a character list, then the AI gets really confused. So I always have a character list in a setting location so that the AI knows exactly what it's needing to write with.
I've recently conducted an experiment because in my current work, I have a team. And when I say the team, Story Engine especially throws in new members of the team. And so in my character box, I said team equals, and I listed everybody who was in the team. And for this group thing, it was, and what kind of shifter they were.
So,
That's worked out.
and I think that's pretty cool. That's a nice way to be able to list who all's in there. Now, Cleo is mentioned in every single one of these beats now. The thing that still is not answered is that when the love interest enters, walks between the two realms and enters the human world, we still don't know how Laura reacts because Laura sees him, they lock eyes, but does he just materialize? Does he not? Does he come around a corner, come around a bush? I don't know that. And I don't want the AI to just take liberties and poof, magic appears. And then all of a sudden Anna knows all about magic because right now she doesn't know about magic. So let's see what happens. You can once again revise chapter 1. Let's not repeat yourself more than once. And let's go ahead and state that. Let's see, since Laura showed the love interest.
He's not a love interest yet. I don't think I'd phrase it that way because you know how the AI is going to go crazy.
Yeah, they'll be engaged by the end of this chapter.
Yeah. They might even have babies.
Let's see, then let's say
Handsome stranger or mysterious stranger? Glowing man? I don't know. It call it a glowing man, I think.
yeah. Show he shouldn't be glowing because that would be a telltale to all the humans. Show the
While you're typing that, I've got more monkey wrenches. Anna trying to be nonchalant, but clearly attempting to deflect. We can't.
so we
Yeah.
need to know what does nonchalant look like. We need her body language. Stepping around a tree or shrub. That way it doesn't.
And the same thing with that was on 4. On 6, it's got Cleo jokingly remarking about something trying to break the tension. We don't know that she's trying to break the tension. We can't know that.
So we need to take care of that. And then we need to take care of, okay, so let's see, the characters break sudden tension. There is tension there because remember, Anna's acting odd.
And you guys, and not everybody is going to nitpick the way that I'm nitpicking. I just don't like when, if I can fix it here and I can keep the AI that's going to write it for me from doing that, then I just fix it here. Plus, I'm hoping over time that I can train this doggone thing to understand what I want.
I would say here something like maintain deep point of view from Laura's perspective, and then I'd rerun it to see if that fixed all that stuff. And if it didn't, I would call out specific examples and say, Laura doesn't know this. We can't know this.
True.
I treat the AI like a novice writer, and I try to guide it into why this is not good. I don't know that it does any good, but makes me feel better.
So I think it's funny how it started out Monday at 10 a.m. and then it changed to Friday at like 4 and then Friday at 4:45 and now it's Friday at 6:45.
It's spending time making all these changes.
Yeah. Oh, look, now they're vibrant in their summer outfits. They're standing, okay. Now they're no longer in the brownstone. Am I okay with that? Sure, I'm okay with that because it starts it right here in the action. Did I really need to show her looking at the photo album? There was no action there.
I think it is more active too, but I'm wondering what was revealed there at the beginning in that first beat when they were in the brownstone. Was there something pertinent that we absolutely
The picture of her
What's the
mother by the
picture?
sign.
the
Mhm.
picture of her mother by the sign? Do we need that?
We can always put a picture in there later on a mantle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or she can remember seeing, or think she remembers seeing the picture or something.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, now that I'm looking at that first, the way it was initially, it really didn't have anything going on.
No, it didn't. And that's another thing. If you want your body of work to start actively or start with a hook, then we need to make sure that either one, it's starting with some dialogue and being active, or show some type of action that is happening. Maybe some great big dog has gotten loose. Maybe somebody is walking their dog and they're wearing rollerblades and the dog is dragging them across a trail or something. Add something that will have action to it, something that will immediately draw your reader in. And
Maybe
go ahead.
maybe maybe the big dog comes charging at Anna's dog and stops abruptly and turns around and runs the other way.
Which would be funny because right now I have Anna's dog described as a little bitty fluff ball.
Right. Yeah.
It would be for
That's
her.
why.
Yeah. And,
That-
and this great big dog run away.
Yeah, that would be super cool because like the dog can see that it's a hellhound,
But we won't know that.
but it's like a little bit of a pearl or foreshadowing or something.
Yeah. Sets up a foreshadow.
Hold on. I don't think they met Anna in beat one. I think they met Anna in maybe, was it beat two?
Remember, if it starts off with that, they're not meeting. So it would be a woman.
Oh, it's not.
Maybe Laura
Or maybe
and
it's a big
Cleo
dog
sees it.
charging. They don't know where the dog is charging.
Or they see it's charging toward the dog of her friend.
No, that's not their friend. They don't know Anna.
I thought Anna was Laura's friend.
Anna's Laura's friends from way back.
Cleo is her friend. Laura,
Yeah, but I thought Anna is too.
no,
I think so too. I thought,
Anna was a stranger, so we need to make her a stranger again.
okay, the one I read, I thought it said that Anna was a friend from way back when that she ran into at this event.
Yeah, at one point it was. We've had so many different versions, I've lost track.
And see, that's another thing I don't like. And that's why when I instruct it and I tell it to add or whatever, I say rewrite this exactly as before, but add XYZ. Because otherwise it just starts switching stuff on me, like names and times and details.
This is a case where I would ask it, does Laura know Anna?
But I don't want her to know Anna, so this is the time where
Okay, that if long as you've got your plan, that's great.
because if she already, I guess she could know her, but not for years, because remember, this is when Anna later on is going to harbor feelings toward her. And okay, so what are the pros and cons? So let's talk about the pros and cons. Originally, what, 10, 12 versions ago, Anna was a stranger. Anna was somebody that she did not know, but Anna is actually working with some of the antagonists. So That's why I want to take a look at that.
Oh, okay. I
Now,
didn't know that. All I know is what we got here.
now Anna could, rather than being an antagonistic force, Anna could be a watcher. But then if she was a watcher and keeping an eye on Laura, then Laura would have seen her before. Now we could make her a friend or an acquaintance that she sees in passing. So again, how do we want to show that? Now, if they are friends, then that brings up another question. If Anna and Cleo and Laura are all friends, then why wouldn't she be meeting them in the park to play the game? She is not at any point playing the game with the two other ladies. So if they were really good friends and chummy, wouldn't you think that they would invite her to play if she wasn't already invited?
I didn't think they were that close. I just thought that they knew each other and Anna was walking the dog in the park while they were in the park.
So, what are the pros of having them know Anna? Because remember, Anna is then inviting them to go to some cafe. And remember, Anna owns or has some connection to the cafe. So, wouldn't they already know that? And that was in a few versions back that she was inviting the ladies to come and try out a new cafe. That to me would tell me that if they know Anna, then that would have only been an acquaintance,
Mhm.
but if she's a stranger in mentioning it, then so what is the pro to Anna being somebody that they know, and what is the con?
I don't think there's any pro to them knowing Anna. That was the story before.
Yeah,
No,
I don't
I'm
care.
saying right now, do you
Yeah.
can you see a pro to it? Or
No,
okay. So in y'all's opinion, what do you think would better serve the story? Does it better serve the story for them to know her in passing? Is it somebody that they see in the park all the time and just in passing say hi? Or is this a complete stranger? What do y'all think?
Doesn't really matter to me. I don't have a horse in the race. I think whatever you go with, one way or another, we mold the story around that, and
right.
I don't care.
Yeah, it
I don't
depends
mean
on her
it,
part in the story.
yeah, I don't mean it flippantly. I'm not invested in her at this stage yet. So go with what you got in the interest of time, anyways.
Of course, she's
Yeah.
got this hellhound dog that I want to know more about.
Yeah, that's the coolest part, isn't it?
I'm making notes for myself here, but when I run these beats later on, I want the I want it to transfer over into my beats. I will leave myself notes like this so that whenever I go to generate something later, at a quick glance, I see the parentheses and I say, okay, there's an internal note. I've got to pay attention to this. I will sometimes remove it, sometimes I'll put it in a guardrail, depending on what it is. So I need to make sure that if I leave this in here, I run the risk, if it's in my story beats, I run the risk of the AI actually making them vast friends, or if I don't put it in there, I run the risk of the AI bringing in a completely new character that I don't want. Now, one way that I have worked around that is to say a woman. And then in parentheses, I can describe what Anna looks like and what this little fur ball looks like, because I can have those descriptions in a Word document that I keep for myself. Not something that I give to the AI, but I can load that information in manually right before I start generating prose. That's how I would handle that. What about you, Cece or Lynn?
If we leave it the way it is
Hmm.
and don't guardrail it, first of all, we don't know Anna because Laura doesn't know Anna yet. And we don't
Yeah.
know that the dog's a hellhound because Laura doesn't know that yet. But the AI, it'll reveal it immediately. It gets a chance.
And that's why I'm putting this here, but I'm just in the preliminary stage right now,
Mhm.
drafting. I am going to I do leave this here because I'm drafting. And if it does something in the summary that I don't like, then I can physically go in and touch it. I don't need my summary to be 100% perfect with every single word that I want in it because I'm a writer. So when it comes time to flip this into, say, story beats in my final chapter outline, and with my extended beats, I then will generate those. And if there's something that I need to change, rather than fighting with the AI, as long as I have the guts of what I need and the bulk of the information needed, then I can go in and make some minor changes. I have never to date, since working with the AI, ever had it spit out a chapter summary or all 12 beats or 12, 10, 12, 14, 26 beats. I've never had it generate all of one chapter without me having to touch something. So even after you do all this planning, you are still going to have to take the reins as the writer, and you're going to have to correct stuff. There's no way for getting around that. The AI can only do so much. And then us as writers, we have stuff. I know that there are times when I'll ask Cece, hey, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I've got to generate. I have 4 days before I have to use up my words. So I am now generating inside of pseudo write story engine. And then I might touch base with her 5 hours later and I'm like, hey, what you doing? And she says, oh, I'm on chapter such and such. And I'm making sure that my beats are clean enough before I hit generate. So I do find that we still, even with all this, we are still going through and making sure that our content, even right to the very end, before we hit send or generate on any of the LLMs, we're still having to make sure that we read it and go over it and make sure that we haven't missed something because we're only human and things get past our eyes. Cece, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. But when I say that I'm a writer, I'm a story writer. I don't necessarily like the idea of writing and rewriting beats. That's why I rely on the AI to do the heavy lifting on that. And then I can take it in there without, plus, might be cleaner. It might be more accurate. So I fix in here so that I don't have to fix later, pretty much.
But now, if I'm fixing it, if there's only like a handful of words that I need to fix, I'm not going to beat the AI to death on that. But like with what Cece's saying, if there's something major in there, yeah, I'm going to fix that because what if I leave this project and then I come back to it a week later because I'm going to finish fleshing it out? I might have forgotten something. So that's why I am going to try and make sure that I'm fleshing it out. And you've noticed that each time we do this, our beats get longer. Have you noticed that? Because there's more information being added to what it is that we have in our chapter primary beats. What time is it now? Okay, it's still 6:45. Mm, Some of this has changed a little bit, the character's voice and the story tone. Okay, see how it says reveal to be Anna? I will then I go in to generate these beats. I'm going to be looking at this and I'm going to have to direct the AI when I generate this to state that this is not revealed to Laura. Now, Anna can introduce herself. So I would reword that when I go to tell the AI to write the main story beats, I would reword that. Okay, so here's Cleo being the comic relief about jokes about the line-hearted. It's still having Cleo joke. So she has a reflection. Now, that's okay. And we could even mention something in here about her mother's remembering a picture about her mother. We could do that, but we have to be really careful because I notice if we give too much things like that, you could end up in a flashback that just takes on a life of its own. Okay, so now we have Anna joining the duo, introducing herself and her dog. So she's talking to them. Let's see, but her cheerful demeanor changes, and it's something that Anna can see. Now we know that her body language tightens, the small dog's protective stance. So we get to see that. This is showing me rather than it stating that Anna senses something. This is showing us this is something that Laura can see. So he seemingly appears from behind some shrubs. Laura feels a pull to him. Cleo this time doesn't notice, continues her conversation. Anna's dog growls, its eyes on the figure. So, how do y'all feel about this one?
Feels good.
Yeah, I think it's much better.
The only thing that I see that I will need to take care of later is revealed to be Anna. And definitely, I can leave it that way if I want to, but I can also change that later on to state that Anna introduces herself.
Oh,
See how it handles it in the prose.
there's one thing you're gonna have to fix because it says a hellhound's reaction, and she doesn't know it's a hellhound.
Yes. So that good catch. And because of that, I'm going to have to make sure that the AI understands that the hellhound, nobody knows that it's a hellhound because Laura can't know that. So these are all the things that we do when we are focused on fleshing these out. And as you can see, look at how much time we have spent on a single chapter summary.
Yep. You're not gonna do the whole book tonight, are you?
Oh
I'm
gosh.
I'm just kidding. I think you're stopping at chapter 1, aren't you? Oh, you're going on to chapter 2. Okay.
I'm just going to have it pull it up. And the reason why I'm going to pull it up, we will stop here. The reason why I'm going to pull it up is because I want people to see one thing that I like to do when I'm asking it to bring in chapter 2. And the reason why I do this is because I have a feeling that there are things that may have changed chapter 2. Primarily, we know that the time of day has changed. We know that some of the flow of things have changed. So now I want it to give me the chapter summary for chapter 2, and I want it to make sure that any change that has occurred flows into chapter 2. So let's see what it says. So it's showing us whose perspective it is. It is now 7:05. We get to see who's here. Now, I have an issue with this. He fully
Only
immersed.
one?
I don't know because I haven't read the rest of it. So I would go back here and I'd have to look. Now I know that their eyes lock. I know that he appears from a shrub, and actually the order here, she's looking at him. Now I wouldn't want AI to write prose that says that their eyes are locking on each other. He would need to appear before their eyes could lock. But I need to make sure that there's nothing else that happens here. She has a pull toward him. She's looking at him. They don't have any communication. But that would mean that right here, that if he's coming into play here, he's emerging fully from the hidden realm. You know what? He's already emerged because he emerged in chapter 1.
Look at your character list.
So
She's not there.
And that's an issue because this is showing him emerging as if he hasn't seen anybody. It is only having him see Voss somewhere from the shadows. Therefore, that means that Cleo, Anna, Laura, Anna's dog, none of those are present. And they are all there. So
Look at me too.
yeah. So this chapter would have to be changed because of all those changes. So then I would have to start prompting it to remind the AI that all these changes have taken place. So this is a type of plotting that I do.
Wait a minute. Just so I can make sure I'm on the same page. So what he's doing now is he's left Central Park and gone back to the Hidden Realm, right?
Nope. He emerges fully from the hidden realm into Central Park. He is coming in to Central Park. See? And there's a brief shimmer around him, and he's undetectable to human eyes. So nobody else can see him, but he's already been seen in chapter 1 by Laura.
In chapter 1, did he vanish? Did he leave?
Yeah, there was no communication between them. But look, he's
So
reflecting on his encounter with Laura.
maybe that just by encounter, maybe it means seen. I'm just wondering if this has messed something up and it's actually in order, but maybe the setting is wrong. Like he should be back at the Hidden Realm because he's already seen her and now he's gone back and that's where Voss is, whoever Voss is.
Right? So again, that might make better sense for him to go back into the realm, or he could go off somewhere where he can observe. So we would have to determine what would serve the story better. Does he get called away? to go look at something because maybe something's happening and he has to go and look at it? Or does he stay where he is at and observe from a distance? We have to decide which one is more plausible. So that's one of the things that I like to do. I always tell it to make sure that it's looking at the chapter because we've made changes that will impact some of the other summaries. And we want to make sure that we're fleshing all those out. Now, again, right here, it's stating in 3 that he's reminiscing. What's he reminiscing about? Did he have a game of poker with his mentor? I don't know what he did.
He's reminiscing about her, isn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
reflecting on this brief encounter. I think this is just a little sequel to the scene we just had.
I think so
but
too.
I'm not going to trust the AI though, because
Oh,
what if,
no.
which means that if I put this somewhere and if I keep it in Chat GPT-4 and I generate, then Chat will automatically look at the stuff that came before. And I probably have a better little scene that's written. But if I put this into Story Engine of pseudo write and I am generating, it goes into a silo that just generates one chapter at a time. So if I were to have fleshed out story beats later on, then it wouldn't know that he was reflecting on the prior chapter event. I would have to write that in. So I would have to write this thinking about the LLM that I'm wanting to write this body of work in. Do I want to keep it in Chat GPT-4 and write the whole book here? Or do I want to pull it into Claude and write it in Claude? Or do I want to pull this into Story Engine or Rexy and write the story in an LLM that has no filter? I need to have an LLM that has no filter. Is this going to have levels of violence that maybe censored LLMs will not permit? Or will it have a level of sexual content that Claude or Jasper or ChatGPT will slap my hand for? I have to determine that. And that will lead me to where I'm going to be generating the prose for this. And that's going to be a decision I really would have needed to make before I started all this. Is that it's going to have some violence in it, which is going to be greater than what chat will handle. And it's going to have some sexual content. And that means that I'm not going to generate the prose here, which means that everything that I am generating for all of my summaries and that I'll flesh out into my chapter beats, I'm having to gear that toward what pseudo write story engine will accept and what will work better in their LLM or these LLM. How about you, CC or Lynn, when you are using one LLM, do you think about which other LLM will be able to write the content better for you? What is the criteria that you follow when you're looking at that?
Quite frankly, of course, I don't need an unfiltered LLM for anything I write, but
Mm.
I love to get at least 2 versions from 2 different models. And then usually what happens is I take pieces of each one. I don't do either one wholeheartedly. And then of course, I have to put my own in there and weave it in. But I love mixing and matching the model.
And where do you find that you can do that? Where LLMs are your go-to?
Until recently, I've been using Sudowrite. So I've been using Best Prose, which is Claude, and Most Accurate, which is GPT-4. And occasionally I run Fastest, which is GPT-3, and it works well sometimes too. And another deciding factor for me is which one's performing best at the time. There's some days that some of them just aren't making sense. And so to making progress in the book, I'll go over to whatever seems to be working.
How about you, Cece?
I plot in Claude or Chat GPT-4, and I will can do prose in either of those. I actually like Claude's prose done in Claude, but I And then I do it in Story Engine if it has anything graphic. I just had an idea though. I'm not trying to derail us. You know how we have it, we tell it using what you learned in what we did in chapter 1, create this chapter 2 summary. I think that's good. But then after it creates it, I think we have to tell it to treat it like a silo. I think that wouldn't be a bad step to tell it to treat it like in other words, write the beats explicitly as if it's a silo and the person who's going to be getting this assignment or the AI who's getting this assignment doesn't know the things that you are mentioning that were mentioned before. Does that, I don't know, that maybe we need to try that. I'm just throwing that out there. It just came to me. Sorry. I did not mean to derail anything, but it just came to me. If I don't speak an idea when it comes to me, it's gone. And Ellie says something. Ellie says, I had to flesh a story recently, and I did like Lynn and took pieces from GPT, ChatGPT, and modules inside Poe because I did not have access to Claude. So how about that? And Ellie, access to Claude is free now. I don't know if you know about it, but Claude 2 is free and open to anyone.
No, it depends on where you live.
Yeah, it depends on location.
Yeah, exactly. Because I live in Canada, but the thing is that recently I just discovered that I had a VPN, but like I was not using it. So I tried and I could get access. It was like 2 weeks ago or so.
Excellent. Yeah, I didn't think about people from other countries. I'm sorry. I'm so American centric that I don't think of.
I'm happy to be with you guys, girls, lady.
That's okay. Don't worry about gender. I've already made that mistake when I said we were all women because I made a bad assumption. And I'm sorry about
It's okay.
And I call everybody guys. I don't care if it's a group of females or a group of
That's a little bit Italian. The Italians, they say ragazzi. So ragazzi for
So you Italian?
Israeli girls. No, no, I'm not Italian, French. French. But, I know a little bit of Italian.
And I'm sorry, and you don't have to do this right now, Mira Gold. We can play with it later. It's just that I just thought of it and I thought how that could possibly change the way it writes the beats to be more Story Engine friendly since that's a silo. If it were Claude or anything like that, or ChatGPT, I wouldn't worry about the silo part, but I'm sorry to
I can't see that it listened to us here much.
That's so true.
how often does it listen to us 100%? We're constantly
Never 100%.
I'm going to say this though, as much as I might complain about it, what an incredible invention this is. Even if all it did was give me a rough outline, I could write the story. I would be fine with it. But just what an incredible invention we have here. And the thought that I can take my massive series and upload each book individually into Claude and have it break it down, deconstruct it, tell me anything that happened, tell me who's pregnant, who's not, who had a baby, so I can make sure I keep all that straight. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here extolling the virtues of AI, but it's just amazing.
So I just had him step back in. Now, I'm not going to do that here, but if I were to continue to work on this tonight, the same thing that we just did in the chapter 1 summary is what I would do to every single chapter. And you know what, Cece? I am going to play with that new suggestion and I'm going to play around with it and see what it does to treat them as individual silos, especially since I'm wanting to take this into Story Engine or maybe even to Rexy. We might have to pull Lynn in again as a guest host and have Lynn assist us inside of Rexy and see how we can play with both. That way I can play with generating this when it comes time to generate a chapter. We can generate inside of Story Engine, but then we can also play with the generation inside of Rexy. I think that would be an interesting comparison to see how the two do. So we would love for you to come back and assist us again on another day, Lynn.
Yeah, absolutely.
I might be talked into that.
We have cookies.
Yeah.
We might have to play with the prompting that we use to have it consider siloing the chapter. We might have to give it some training on that though.
Yeah, I will play with that tonight because my day is just beginning because I will work for the next, I don't know, several hours. I am a night owl.
And mine is ending.
I know. So any thoughts, comments from any of the viewers?
Open discussion, anybody. Oh, hey, Dion said that it turned Voss into a guy in beat two. Wait, is Voss a female? I didn't even know Voss was female. I missed that.
That boss is female. That
Hmm.
is the third time that ChatGPT has turned Voss into a male. Yes, that's why I'm saying I have to take care of this. And last time that happened, I went and grabbed all of Voss's information and plugged it in, and chat was like, "Oh, so sorry."
Nobody wants to talk to us.
So let's see what it gives me. It's probably going to give me something really off the wall. Nope. So here I would tell him no and wonder what crack the AI is smoking, because right now he just said that Voss is in her late 30s in human years. Well, we know that Voss is ageless. There is no
Well,
age.
it does say timeless. It does say timeless in the beginning.
So years to be in late human years doesn't really give me any more information about her. I think that it has lost something in the transition. Now, all of a sudden, she has raven black hair, braided with tiny crystals and gemstones. That's interesting. That I definitely keep in there. We know she's cunning. We know ambitious, manipulative, but I would still take some of my early description along with this, and then
Yeah.
I would rework her bio sheet again. And I know I hear people say, "What about the bios?" You just saw that all I did was ask it for the bio sheet again, and it gave me the information that I originally fed, telling it that I needed the age, the physical description, personality, strength, weakness, motivations. Now, I do like and I hope I don't know if I'm saying your name correct or not, but was it you, Ellie, or was it Angie who made the comment earlier, or was it Dion that made the comment about having information that you feed into the AI, like structured documents that had information? I'm not sure who it was that had mentioned that earlier. This would be a really good time to have all that information ironed out and to have your character sheets where you could just go grab it out of your folder and say, "Nope, I think you're on drugs, and here's the character list," and
Yeah.
then get that to the AI.
I wonder if this chat has gone on so long it's lost part of its context window.
It was 42 pages earlier, which is why I reintroduced the character list earlier here, because it's beginning to give me wrong information. That's where I would take, and usually when I'm doing this, I pull stuff off and I put it into all the stuff that I'm keeping. I put into my vellum file, and I'll list it as my character bios. I'll list my world, the setting. It will list any backstory information. And each time that changes or I have a new description, I will replace it with the new one so that I always have it at my fingertips. And that is something that I do in my process when I am doing all of this just in the quiet night of my office when everybody else has gone to bed. This is what I'm doing. And that keeps me organized and it allows me to grab the information without having to scroll back and forth. But I don't know what processes others have, but to that individual's point, yes, that would be a perfect way to do it and being able to build that information. I currently go and grab just the context that I need and throw it back at Claude because, yeah, Chat GPT-4, because chat forgets about every 40, 50 pages. You need to remind, and yes, a very long chat does tend to make it forget things, and that's why you have to keep reminding it. Any other thoughts, comments?
What you typed? Nope, not from me.
Oh, because I was going to say, nope. What drugs did you? What were you smoking over there? But I did not do that because I wasn't going to go up and grab the information again. But yeah, I would have said, nope, that's not correct. No, I do not start a fresh conversation. I was asked, but do you have to start a fresh conversation? I do not start a brand new chat window. I actually stay in this from beginning to end. So you can imagine how this one chat is. if I did that and I had like 5 or 6 different chats on the same item, I would be fit to be tied because, I want to keep everything organized. And again, it might be because I'm very much a creature of habit and I want to keep everything in one location. And that's why I will have everything that I'm chatting, I keep it in one chat window. And then I do open up my Vellum and I put everything inside there. I guess I kind of use Vellum the same way people use Scrivener, and then I grab my information, plug it back into my same chat to rewind to so that I can reorient the AI. I keep refreshing its memory. No, I don't want to do one chat per chapter because that might work, but I like to have everything in one place because I write a lot of different stories. Everything that you see on the left, where it has all of these items listed, they are all separate documents. And I know that if I go in and I want to go in and look at my space station astronaut story, everything for that story is right there. I don't have to go and look for 10 different documents to try to remember what is inside of each one. Plus, if I silo all of them and I want to do something that has all of those chapters together and I want to ask a question or an evaluation question, I'd like to keep everything in one place. I don't know, that's my preference. That works for me, but it may not work for other people. So every writer has his or her own style and preferred process. How about you, Cece? Do you like to keep everything in one chat or will you make multiple chats depending on what you're doing?
Never make multiple chats because, I mean, I'm saying I never make them because all the information, the characters, the setting, all of that is in there. And since I don't know how far back it goes, and I don't know if everybody was there this, I want to say morning, but I guess it was this afternoon when we had the class. I create a document that, and I use headings in Microsoft Word for each characters and settings and taglines, log lines, beats, and everything. So I will pull what I need out of there, tap it back into chat and remind it, here's the character list, here's the settings. Now let's build this chapter. Now let's build that chapter. Every so often I will remind it what it needs. That way it doesn't have to go through this craziness of switching stuff up or trying to create characters that it can't remember. But I never ever would create a new one unless chat somehow malfunctioned and forced me to. Oh, Ellie says, I recently discovered a way of keeping things together. OneNote or any software like that. Yep, that works too. What about you, Lynn?
I tend to keep most of my stuff in Sudowrite. I do have multiple chats, and I have ADHD, so I change subjects in the middle of a chat or something. But I put together the groups in Sudowrite, and I've started recently breaking things down into acts rather than doing a single chapter. But if you're doing a whole bunch of chapters, scrolling back and forth with pseudo's a pain until they change the interface. That should help. But so then I just keep a project in Sudowrite for each act.
But do
And
you
that'll
have a different chat for each chapter or anything like that?
It depends on what I'm doing. I don't develop my characters in chat. I don't do the outlines in chat. Basically, it's just the brainstorming. And I do have a one single chat where the whole series is outlined. Every book in the series is outlined. And then sometimes I'll take one of the books and I'll create a chat separately for it.
And that's interesting that you break, Lynn, it's interesting that you break yours down into acts rather than into chapters. I guess the way that I look at it, and as an author, the way that it makes sense to me is every time I hear the word chapter, I think of a book.
I It's still chapters,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I have a project that's like chapters 1 to 5. And then I have another project that starts with Act 2 that may be 6 to 10.
And it's interesting that you do that. I know that I will use the Blake Snyder beat sheet, and there are times when I will look at things in the early conception. I may look at things in an act structure, or I will use the Blake Snyder beat sheet, which automatically puts it into act structures. But when I am fleshing stuff out and talking about a book, I will generally not use the word act, because if I'm talking to, say, I'm talking to Cece, if I start using the word, and it's maybe because of the way that we communicate, if I use the word act, then it cues her that we're speaking about scripts because we
Ah,
also.
of course,
Okay.
yes.
So,
And I don't deal with acts per se. That's just a simpler way, since the outline in Story Engine breaks it up into acts. It's
mhm.
just an easy way for me to clump the chapters together.
And that's interesting. I think I've seen you and John and a couple of other people when y'all do your author hours or your pseudo write and story engine 101s or 201 classes. I've actually seen where y'all will title things like Act One hyphen introduction colon, then go to chapter one, chapter two. I tend to still use the old fashioned, the very first thing that pseudo write was doing for story engine. I do not type act in there. I'm still typing if I'm doing a book, I'm still typing section 1 dash introduction colon, and then I do all of my chapters so that I can see them 1 through 30 with no
Mhm.
acts, whether breaks, and that's how I do mine. But then I do the same thing when I am working with my scripts. I'll do the same thing. So I never put act anywhere in the outline body of story engine. But I think it's because, again, I'm a creature of habit and that's how I started. So I've never changed the process to start showing the acts.
I'm the same way. I use that same template we developed back in, I think you developed it actually back in maybe December or January, and then I modified mine a little bit, but I still use the same one.
Oh yeah, when you modified yours, I was like, can you shoot me that? And you sent that over to me. And that's actually the one that I use now. So you attended the Robert McKee story seminar and discovered Save the Cat 9 years ago. It did. Wow, it changed my life. I so love using it. And so Cece and I have been friends for quite some time now. She was actually my very first editor. She was my introduction to the writing world a lifetime ago. And she was once who said, "Hey, get Save the Cat and let's use it for novels." And I was also taking a creative writing course through for my MFA. And they also suggested it. And they kept saying, "Oh, no, it's only for script writers." But then I was looking at what Cece was doing, and I was like, "Oh, it's not just for script writers, it's for novelists too. You just have to tweak it and massage it to be the type of outline or template that you need." And it makes perfect sense to me. But then again, it's the way I guess that CC and I have used it over the years because I plot everything in there, whether it is a feature, a pilot, or if it is a novella, a short story, or if it's a pilot. I will use Save the Cat. I'll use the Blake Snyder beat sheet. So, definitely, I agree with you. Nice. Jessica Brody. I'm gonna have to look that up because I am not familiar with Jessica Brody. I'm gonna have to look that up.
I have to go back in my memory because I've heard that name and read some stuff about her. And I think it was on a blog post I read about her. So I need to go and refresh my. Yep. There you go. That sounds about right.
Exactly.
Yep. Because I knew, I think I have that book. But Save the Cat is so amazing. Man, even if you don't use it exactly for plotting, it reminds you, it's like a checklist. When you have your story together, you can say, "Oh, wait a minute. Do I have my favorite cat moment? Do I have this moment?" So you can clearly make sure that you have them.
Now, I do not have.
Now, every time
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Now every time I watch a movie, I'm just like, here he saved the cat. Oh, here she did
Yes.
something.
Yes, and the best movies, you realize how much they follow that formula, right?
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
And it's funny when I was going through the MFA program and I was learning about some of this and also going through edits with CC prior to that, it was so funny because my husband and I would always talk about the different things that I was studying, and I'd sit down and I would analyze movies. And as I was analyzing them, we would be talking about the different elements of the Blake Snyder beat sheet as I was breaking them down. And to this day, when we're watching a movie, my husband also talks that lingo and we'll talk about, oh my gosh, where is the dark night of the soul? That was not a dark night of the soul. Or we'll take a look at, was that a strong enough debate? So we will have that conversation between each other. And my husband jokes and he tells me, you do realize that you ruined movies for me sometimes because I don't know how much time I spend analyzing them versus watching them. So when we really get lost in a movie or a television series and we're not analyzing it, then we know that, wow, that body of work has really garnered our full attention if we are not dissecting it.
So true.
Dion, I have not read Save the Cat Writes a Novel, nor have I read Save the Cat Writes a YA novel. Have you read either one of those? And if so, what are your thoughts on those two? So, both of those bodies of work are by Jessica Brody, and you have not read them yet. I'm going to have to put that on my to read list because I do like to read how to books as well. And I've read like Sarah Dommett, I have read Francine Prose, and I've even read Stephen King's On Writing and a handful of other books that I really like to read. And from time to time, I'll go back to them for a refresher on something.
Hey,
Ellie,
isn't there a save? Oh, I'm sorry, Mira. I didn't mean to step on you. Isn't there a save the cat strikes back too?
yes, there is that one too. I've not read that one either.
What were you saying? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I was going to ask Ellie what he thought about the very first one, or that you read the first one, Save the Cat Writes a Novel. What
Yeah.
was your
It's in fact, I read it like as I said here 2 years ago, and I did it. It was like at almost the same time I took the course that she was giving on Udemy or Udemy, I don't know. And yeah, I didn't. In fact, it was not telling me something new because in comparison with what she was saying during the course, it was redundant. But it's nice because yes, it's a reference afterward. Like, and have it done. If you have any doubt, you go and check it out.
nice? Very nice.
But it's nice. Yes. Yeah.
At this point, I'm not going to go in and do any more processing of the chapter story summaries. I just wanted to make sure that I walked through that one and I wanted y'all to see how much work actually goes into it. And the fact that when I'm plotting, I plot out every little element. And even before I actually go in and start to flesh out my chapter beats for my story beats, I will actually read over my summary beats one more time. And I'll do it from beginning to end just to make sure that everything feels cohesive and that the different chapters flow into each other the way that they should, or if maybe chapter one should be flowing into chapter three, I pay attention to the flow and the linear direction of how those chapters should flow. And if I see any gaps, I will take care of those before I ever start fleshing out my full story beats. But again, I do a lot of back and forth and a lot of planning. You heard Lynn. Lynn likes to do things as a pantser, and that makes sense to Lynn because she is a pantser. I'm a plotter planner, and we do things different. We do some things the same, but there are differences in our process. It doesn't make one right and one wrong. Both processes are correct. It's just that as writers, we just see things or tackle them in a different way. And you will find that every writer does something a little bit different. And your process may even change from book to book. And that's okay because we are constantly learning and constantly finding different avenues to move our stories forward. Even Cece and I, as long as we have worked together, we have a lot of processes that are similar, but then we also have processes that are different. And again, that's okay. Any final thoughts, Len or Cece?
None from me. How about you, Lynn?
No, not really.
Any other questions before we wrap up this session? If there are no other questions, then I am actually going to conclude this session today. Cece, will you do us the honors of doing the closing?
I sure will. And we want to thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and to ring the bell so you can be notified of any new releases. Ding!